on, everybody? Welcome to another episode, our 50th episode of the KC Tailgaters show. Finally hit the magic number 50. Should be a lot more. I agree. I'll go with that. But we're here. We made it to 50. Jordan Anderson with me as always. My guy Marcus Baker. Marcus, we got to 50. It's been 2.5 years now, almost 3. We're getting there, but finally hit the number 50.
It's exciting. I just kicked my desk. The camera dropped down. Hey, it's part of the process, you know. We've come a long ways. I mean, literally, this thing started with a notepad on a dusty couch in your garage 3 or 4 houses ago. So to see where we are now in comparison to where we were then, just the idea of being on video and having a camera to kick. Like, when we started this, we never thought it'd really be where it is, let alone where we want it to go. So excited to be on YouTube, first off. I mean, that's even more exciting, I would say, than doing the audio podcast because you get a little bit of payout.
It's been good for us. It's definitely been good for us. Definitely got a lot more views on it, and, we're interacting with people better. I have people messaging me all the time telling us, that we're doing a good job, and we appreciate that. We cannot express our gratitude enough towards that. We love doing it, and glad you guys have been along for the ride. Some of our day ones have been there from the beginning as well, so just happy to have everyone follow along, and we're going to keep getting it to you every week.
Yeah, and like you said, it's done wonders for us, but this is just the beginning, and that's what people need to understand. That's why I like and subscribe and sharing our page, especially if you know us personally, you know how much time and effort we put into this, so that's really appreciated, and
for sure,
it's a work in progress for both of us.
For sure.
It really is. I mean, you see last week, if you guys watched last week, I had technical issues the whole episode. But we're just grinding through problems like that and trying to grow and learn from each experience and just kind of make things better for you guys, not just for us. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Contacted the internet provider. It shouldn't be happening. I have the best thing that you can get where I live, but it is what it is. It's just another bump in the road. We've come a long ways, had a lot of perseverance, also had a lot of road blocks for both of us in our personal lives that have kind of limited us to only be at 50 at this point. But I'm appreciative to get here. And like I said, I think it's just the beginning. So looking forward to the future, looking forward to another, hopefully, Super Bowl Chiefs season, best case scenario, and just keeping this thing rolling, getting the season underway. And we made it. Football's back. That's all I got to say.
For sure. We are back. We got a good show we got a good show planned for you guys today. Man, I'm a little rusty. We're going to recap the Chiefs 49ers preseason game, highlight the bright spots in that one, talk about the guys that impressed us, the guys that didn't look as good as well. Then we're going to talk about the latest cuts. Chiefs made some cuts today, actually, being Tuesday. They have to turn their roster down before Friday game against Arizona. So we're going to talk about that as well. And then lastly, we are going to give you our 53-man roster projection. So, Marcus, let's go ahead and get into it. Chiefs played the Niners in the Bay. Some good spots, some bad spots. Give me some guys that really jumped off the charts who, hey, these guys are looking good.
I think first and foremost, you look at those first few drives. It was really only the first and probably half of the second quarter. But our offensive line, it was encouraging. You look at the physical brutality and dominance that they expressed through, the whole line. Even a guy like Tooney, who's not necessarily a bruising style lineman. He's not an aggressive guy like a guy like Trey Smith or even Orlando Brown. He's more of a technician, but he was even getting extensive push in the run game. So that's very exciting. You see just, optimism. I think that'd be the word. Because for us as Chiefs Kingdom as a whole, the biggest hurdle we had in the offseason was finding peace with the fact that our offensive line depth cost us a championship. And that's the reality. So to put that new product with all these new guys on the field and actually see it not only be efficient, but also be kind of dominant when they were in, especially in the run game. I mean, Clyde breaks that first carry for, 11 or 12 yards. I about flew off my couch. Right. I was freaking out. I don't think Clyde's went that far without being touched in his entire NFL career. So it's exciting. We only had Pat for 4 snaps, but those 4 snaps, we ended up going 3 and out that first drive. But a couple things go differently, just barely, and it's a whole nother outcome probably to that first drive, and he may get more than 4 snaps. But it was a win, even regardless of the score, because 15 got out of that game healthy. And that, in my opinion, is all that matters when you're at this level, roster-wise, for the preseason.
And I want to note here for, our listeners that aren't necessarily Chiefs fans, but they listen to it because it's us and they're friends with us. I'm not getting super excited over preseason. So please don't think that I am. I'm really not. I know a lot of people blow up the preseason like, hey, these guys are going to be good. No. That's not the case with us. We're just trying to give you the in-depth kind of stuff that we like to talk about. So I want that to be put on record that we're not getting super excited about preseason. I mean, one of our friends sent us a picture of Ezekiel Elliott, or a video of Ezekiel Elliott juking through trash cans and thought it was impressive. So it could be worse if you're talking about blowing up preseason stuff and workouts.
Another point.
Not getting too excited about it.
We have to include the fact that San Francisco's defensive line, the starters for the most part didn't play, so that matters. But the big takeaway, I think, from the offensive line, they did not look like a unit that had just started playing together. That was the big thing. It looked like they had chemistry and cohesion, and that's really what matters. That's all you can take from preseason. It looks like they were passing off their blocking assignments and not making mental mistakes. And that matters, regardless of who you're facing. So, yeah, I agree. It's not the level of talent that we're going to face in the regular season, but it was encouraging and created an optimistic outlook on my part because you could see that they've actually grown from day one of OTAs to where I think they'll be ready to be able to communicate and protect 15 come week 1 against Cleveland.
For sure. To go along with the offensive line, you flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. A couple guys that really jumped off to me, really impressed me from the start. One was Chris Jones. Aside from the very first play from scrimmage, he was like the entire team was completely lost. I mean, it had me like Friday, when he's like, damn, that's what it had me like. But, I mean, they all just got fooled. But besides that, he looked great at the defensive end spot. Not a lot of tackles are going to be used to a man that big, that size, that powerful coming at you like that. And granted, like you said, they had a lot of starters out, but still, Chris Jones looked phenomenal. Got his first sack, with his limited snaps. I think he played like 6 snaps, got a sack in one of those 6 snaps against Trey Lance when he got in. So just really impressive stuff from Chris Jones, both inside and out. So that's one. And then the other's Deandre Baker. Deandre Baker and Mike Hughes absolutely off the charts as far as how they played. Mike Hughes, not as much defensively. Played great defensively, but more in the return game. Special teams have been looking for a guy like that. I know McCole Hardman's had a ton of drops. Byron Pringle, you can put him back there. Antonio Callaway got cut today. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But Mike Hughes is definitely solidifying himself as a number 1 returner thus far. Coming up on preseason
physicality.
Week 2. But,
that was the most physical return I've seen in a long time.
And aggressiveness, for sure. But Deandre Baker, I want to go to him for a second. Got hurt last year in that game where he was playing pretty good up to that point. Worked his way back, worked his tail off in the offseason to get back ready for camp. He's looked great in camp. I think they have him as like the number 3 or number 4 right now. Definitely see him making this team, for sure. They've liked what they've had in him. They expected him to compete for a starting job. Might still be a little bit banged up. I know he was, favoring his leg there towards the end of the game against San Francisco. But loved what I saw from Deandre Baker. He looked great in man coverage. Was always first to the ball. Played his boundaries great as well. Really, really solid stuff from Deandre Baker.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I think he was one of the bright spots. The third and final one on my end, I think you've got to give it to the guy that won the game, Shane Bouchelle. Yes, he's our, 4th quarterback?
Grit.
But I liked what I saw.
Gordon looked good as well, to be honest. All our backups looked good. Chad Henne looked great on that drive. Bouchelle looked great. Gordon looked great. I mean, they all had their moments, for sure.
Like you said, it's preseason. And normally preseason, once you get to that 4th quarter, you're bored out of your mind. Even diehard fans usually don't finish the preseason games. But the way that Bouchelle was able to command the offense, make the plays, after taking a monstrous shot right to the head, that should have been a...
Yeah, how that guy is not kicked out of the league, I have no idea. I had Trent Green flashbacks.
I bet you Trent Green did, too. He was up in the booth. He probably shivered as soon as
And notice he didn't say anything after that.
Talk.
I know,
He was probably
he wasn't talking too much after
seeing orange and black again. But no, that was a Cincinnati Bengals reference, by the way, if you didn't know that. That's who hit him in the head back in the day. But I like Trent. It was nice. That's the one thing I do like about that's the only thing I like about the preseason coverage. The other guy, I'm not a big fan, but I do like hearing Trent back in the booth after not getting to experience that last year. But no, I think Bouchelle he made all the plays.
Yeah, Ari Wolf or whatever his name is. Yeah, he was not good.
And then, of course, we get Kay Adams on the sideline, which that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm
not going to complain about that.
The yoga was the best part
I was
of the game.
laughing so hard. No, Harrison Butker's reaction is what made me laugh so hard because he was totally in the zone, and then he just completely froze. Like, what the heck is going on? So that was funny, but no, all in all, though, just to see.
Back to Bouchelle. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Having a guy with that much determination and poise to make the plays, regardless of what it entailed after taking a shot like that, it's encouraging for him. I think he'll get an opportunity elsewhere. I do expect Gordon to probably end up being our practice squad guy on scout team. Henne will be the backup another year. And the reality is they'll probably bring Matt Moore in if something happens to Henne and probably not let Gordon try to run the offense because there's just too much at stake. You need a veteran in this system. If something, God forbid, was ever to happen to 15, just having somebody that can step in and at least run the offense to a level where he's not going to lose us the game, it's enough to maybe get us through a week. Well, like we saw at the end of the Cleveland playoff game last year with Henne coming in and finishing out strong, getting that victory. That stuff really matters when you have a Super Bowl roster outside your quarterback. So I like Bouchelle, though. I think he's got potential, and I hope he lands somewhere else, if not beating out Gordon for the scout team quarterback.
For sure. I'd like to see either one of those guys. I'd be fine with on the practice squad. Chiefs are usually going to keep two quarterbacks, so that's obviously going to be Mahomes and Henne. Third guy is that real battle, though, and they've both played great. I think Bouchelle is going to get the first reps over Gordon in this next game on Friday. So we'll see what they have again before they come back home to Kansas City for that final game against the Vikings. But let's move on. Cuts happened today all around the league. Old Timmy Tebow got cut from Jacksonville. Our draft crush, Josh. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name. Immortal BB that's how it goes. Anyway, he got cut today as well.
His brother plays at K-State, by the way.
The Chiefs.
I didn't know that. Just found that out like 2 days ago.
Yeah, and I don't remember asking. But anyway, let's talk about the Chiefs cuts. Evan Bayless, tight end, released. Manny Patterson, who's defensive back, was released. Surprisingly, Antonio Callaway. We'll talk about that here in just a second. I think that was with an injury designation as well. Elijah Mcguire, same thing. And then Chad Williams, who was a wide receiver. But Elijah Mcguire, Antonio Callaway, since they have played more than a year, they were placed on waivers. If they clear waivers, they will actually be back in Kansas City on the IR. So not necessarily, or not, there's still a chance that they could be back, but they will be on IR for sure. But are you surprised to see Antonio Callaway cut this early?
This early, yes. But the severity of the injury probably is the only thing that determined it this early. And we'll see later on in the roster projection. He's not a guy that I thought, wow, I just lisped, that I saw, making the roster regardless. But to see him get cut this early is a shock for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And Elijah Mcguire, I think he's been on the practice squad the last few years, or at least the last couple. But not necessarily to see him cut as well. I think Darwin Thompson is going to take that practice squad role. When he gets released, I think he's ultimately going to get released because of the guys that they have in front of him. And then just his playmaking ability and his attitude are just terrible. If he's cut and gone for good, I really wouldn't mind it. But that remains to be seen. Evan Bayless, Manny Patterson, Chad Williams, we really don't know a ton about. Young guys, just, they've got too much in front of them.
Bayless was in Green Bay.
Marcus Kemp has really shined.
He was in Green Bay.
Yeah, that's right.
Then he got hurt here.
You've got guys like Jody Fortson who are blowing up. Darius Shepard. You got Marcus Kent blowing up as well. It's just too many guys to try to beat out. And, the Chiefs weren't going to waste time with getting some of those guys out. I'm sure there's going to be cuts all this week, to be honest. I know each week they have to get their roster down in order to have a preseason roster for the week, so I expect more cuts to be coming soon. But if you're down for it, I'm ready to get into this 53-man projection. I know we've been going back and forth on it for a while, trying to listen to everything we can from training camp as well. But I think we've got a pretty good list here, and I'm excited to get started. So, obviously, 15 at the helm, there's no changes to quarterbacks. Until Chad Henne retires, I don't see there being a change. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes. It's going to be Chad Henne. And I ultimately have the practice squad nod to Shane Bouchelle. So that's who I've got. Marcus, if you want to go ahead and hit running backs. I think your list is pretty similar, so if you want to go ahead and hit running backs.
It's almost identical, I believe, except maybe ranking in terms of depth chart. But for the running backs, I've got, of course, Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the starter. Darrell Williams, in my opinion, will start as the 2. But I think maybe by midseason we may be looking at a guy like Jerick McKinnon, who I have now at 3rd, maybe taking over that 2nd spot, barring injury or just outplaying Williams. And then, like you talked about, I think we saw Elijah Mcguire get cut today. I think Darwin Thompson's well on his way, especially after that idiotic penalty in this last game. And then the final running back, halfback, whatever you want to say, I have Michael Burton, because I think we've seen in the past Andy's going to keep a fullback on roster. And I really think Burton's pretty much Anthony Sherman with maybe a little bit more athleticism. So I think it's a great fit, and that's who I have rounding out the running backs.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Sorry, I'm trying to get my notes to load. But anyway, I'm completely with you on that. I think, like a better way to have the terminology for Darrell Williams and McKinnon would be like a 2A, 2B. Because I can see either one of them getting more snaps than the other, like any different week. I think that's ultimately going to be what happens because, Andy Reid, he's unpredictable. You don't know what's going to happen. But moving on to wide receivers, the top 2 were obvious. Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, although not the biggest Mecole Hardman fan, did not look good at all in the preseason game. But I'm not gonna hammer him just yet. We'll wait until the regular season. 3 through 6 is where it really gets fuzzy because you don't know the order of the guys. You might know some of the guys, but you don't know the order of the depth. So I actually have Demarcus Robinson here, and then I have Byron Pringle. I think your notes have it opposite here. And then Marcus Kemp and rookie Cornell Powell. I do like Darius Shepard. He looked okay. Just don't see him making the team. I see him being practice squad guy. Doesn't really have a ton of experience in the NFL. I know he's a local Kansas City guy. They're going to want to keep him on the practice squad, I have a feeling. So that's my 6. I don't know if you have anything different from that.
I think my ranking, like you said, is different. I have Pringle at 3, Robinson at 4. It was tough because I've heard a lot of negative, not a lot of positive with Powell. And we've seen this regime, I'm pretty sure, did Andy's regime draft Kavare Russell, or was that the group before? Kavari? I don't know how to pronounce.
That was a John Dorsey guy. I'm not sure if that was...
Well, it had to have been with Andy.
The only year he had with
Andy. Because him and Andy got here at the same time. So it would have had to have been. Right? Yeah, because
sure.
They brought John in that off season and then went and got Andy, I think. I could be wrong. There could be 1 year gap. I don't remember. But regardless, that cornerback that we drafted in the 2nd round, we cut him before the final roster in that season. Yeah. I don't want to say we're going to do that with Powell, but I was alarmed with his lack of opportunities till very, very late in that preseason game. His college tape and the physical intangibles look like he should be a guy that's in there early 3rd quarter. So to see guys like Fountain and Kemp get so much work before Powell has me a little bit worried. All in all, I think Kemp's special teams ability is going to put him at 5. And I think Powell's there's too much potential right now to let him go this early. And it's not a guy you can stick on the practice squad because the talent level's too high. somebody will take him from you. So I think he's going to come in at 6 with Kemp at 5, just purely on special teams ability. But I will say Fountain looked like the better receiver over both of them in that first preseason game. So it'll be interesting to see how he finishes out his preseason. And there's a strong possibility that Fountain's a guy that may be able to beat out Kemp if he can show value on special teams also. Because he looked, like I said, far and away the best receiver out of those 3.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely agree. Moving on to tight ends, what do you got?
8-7, best in the game. Travis Kelce, no surprise, number 1.
Facts.
Now, this one might surprise people a little bit. I have Noah Gray second. And yes, I know he made a mistake, had a glaring drop in the preseason game. I also think it was a bad throw that was behind him. But that's neither here nor there. I just think the potential of having him as a pass-catching weapon to run multiple tight end sets with Kelce, it's too dangerous not to give him the opportunity. And they were clearly willing to throw it to him because he played all the way with the second unit all the way to the 4th. So they wanted him to get opportunities and make plays. He didn't really stand out in the game, but he looked like a rookie playing in his first game. He looked like he had those pregame jitters and those nerves. And I'm hoping in week 2 those are worked out a little bit. So I have him coming in at tight end 2. Then Blake Bell, I think, will be more their blocking tight end. I have him at 3. And this has been probably one of the hardest decisions of my entire roster creation and construction on what they're going to decide to do, end all be all. But I had to do it. You look at what Jody Fortson, number 88's been doing, not only in practice. He made plays during the first game in the preseason. Now, I do want to address this. I don't think anybody playing tight end should be able to wear 88 on this team, let alone anybody on this team. That bothers me a little bit, but I like Jody. He's becoming kind of a sleeper fan favorite, and he's a guy I think that receiving ability is just so elite at that position. If he can get to where he can be an efficient blocker, just average, I think he's a guy you have to keep. And from what we put out in the media now about Fortson, I'm afraid to put him on the practice squad because I think when other teams see his receiving ability, they're going to try to take him. So I have Fortson making the roster as well. I have us carrying 4 tight ends. It's going to make things a little bit sketchy elsewhere on the roster. But for the most part, at the other positions, we're pretty top-heavy. We really even are at tight end. But having a guy with Fortson's potential, you can't take the risk of putting him on the practice squad and somebody take him away from you. So those are my tight ends.
All right, on to the offensive line. Kind of cut and dry here. You saw all the new faces. That's exactly how it's going to be. You're going to have Orlando Brown at your tackle, Tooney at your left guard, Creed Humphrey at center, Trey Smith at your right guard, who looked fantastic. Lucas Niang at right tackle looks solid as well. Mike Remmers is going to back up Niang, Andrew Wiley, Austin Blythe at center, Kyle Long once he gets healthy, LDT, Duvernay Tardif, the Canadian doctor.
No, that's.
And then Prince Tano Wanago. Yeah. I can read your notes. Not a lot of people can, but
that was
I got you. But
that pronunciation's the worst on the team.
It's hard, for sure. But, yeah, great depth there. You have guys that would be starters on other teams. Mike Remmers is one of them. Kyle Long is another when he's healthy. You have great depth there, completely revamped offensive line. Like you said, they look great that first drive when all starters were in. So definitely exciting to see what they're going to do this year. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to have a freaking heyday in the backfield. He's never had an offensive line like that. So definitely excited to see what he can do. I know this next category is really – it's probably the hardest one to guess on the prediction chart right now. So I'm going to let you have your first crack at it because my list is a little different.
Okay. The offensive line was tough for me, too. Letting a guy like Nick Allegretti go that's shown toughness and played snaps in the league, he was hard to leave off the list. I just feel like there's a lot of veteran.
I could see him over
Prince?
PT Dub.
Yeah, I feel like Prince provides value at tackle, and I don't think Nick Allegretti can play tackle. And I'm looking more at what they need because I don't know who the backup left tackle is. I think it's him.
Right.
So, guy like Yasir Durant that's played some snaps, he's a guy I think that could be put on the practice squad and be safe. But it's the polar opposite of what we had last year. Last year I was scared about depth going into the season, and this year it's more of a who do you keep, who do you let go. And I was hoping to trade a guy like Andrew Wiley, but I think with the issue they've had with Rimmers and seeing Kyle Long and LDT both hurt, I think we'll keep what we have in a guy like Wiley. But, yeah, no, to hit what you were discussing, the defensive line, it was very tough too. The trenches on this team, every team in this league lives and dies in the trenches, and you've got to make the right choices. And that's what makes it so difficult, because for the first time in a long time, there's intense amounts of depth at both groups. So for the defensive line, I've got Chris Jones at the 1 playing both defensive end and defensive tackle. Then I have Frank Clark, followed by Jaron Reed, Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, Taco Charlton, Mike Dana, Joshua Kando, Colin Saunders. And this one was the toughest one for me. The 10th guy, I battled back and forth. Do you go with a guy like Alex Okafor, that's a proven veteran that's played in this system, that's been on a Super Bowl roster? Or do you go with a guy like Tim Ward that has all the physical intangibles, his first steps incredible, he has the potential to be something in the future? And for the first time, we put some game tape out there of Tim Ward. So there is risk if you throw him on the practice squad. He's a guy that's got a Tano Passanio type frame. It's not to that extent, but it's very close. He looked very impressive in the preseason game. Alex Okafor is constantly injured. So with that being said, I think I'm going to go with Tim Ward. And if I was the Chiefs, I would do the same, because I just feel like we have that veteran presence in guys like Reed and Clark and Jones, and even Derek Nottie. He's getting up to where he's becoming a veteran. And then you're seeing consistent production from Mike Dana. I think Colin Saunders still has potential, given opportunity. And I think Tim Ward has probably some of the highest potential out of the bottom half of that group. So I got to put Tim Ward on the roster.
You know, and I thought I was going to disagree with you on this list, but now after just thinking about it and thinking of some of the guys that have been left off, I actually completely 100% agree with this list here. Yeah, and, you know, we were talking to some of our Arrowhead Live guys the other day about Tim Ward. You can't let him go. And if you're going to let him go, you can't let him go for nothing. Right. So, I mean, the value's there. He looked great. He's been great. And, you know, I'm excited about this defensive line. I think they are going to be a lot better than people think they're going to be. Jaron Reed being the biggest signing, I think. Because of that, you get to move Chris Jones outside, where he absolutely dominated, you know, with his 6 snaps. I know it's just preseason. Don't get all butthurt about it, but no, they look great as well. But moving on to linebackers, and I'm reading our notes again, and I'm sorry. But starting off, Anthony Hitchens, Willie Gay, number 56, whose name must not be said, Nick Bolton, and then I know your notes have Dorian O'Daniel here. I'm going to go with
Amari Cobb.
That we saw, Amari Cobb over Dorian O'Daniel. I think Dorian O'Daniel has had so many chances, just can't get it going. I'm not sure what the deal is. I don't think he hardly played at all in that game against the 49ers, but I'm going to go with Amari Cobb, who looked fantastic. He was everywhere. I think he made like 6 consecutive tackles. I can't see Dorian O'Daniel getting on the field.
I'll be honest, that's who I was flipping and flopping back and forth at that 5th spot. What it came down to for me was, we know that Dave Toub gets his guys. Every year, that last preseason game, he gets his guys. That's just it. It is what it is. You look at guys like, I think Neiman's really ascension on this roster was 100% because of Dave Toub. I don't think he ever would have made it to the point where he played consistently as a linebacker without his special teams contributions. Dorian O'Daniel's one of our standout special teams players, along with guys like Marcus Kemp and Byron Pringle. He's ascended on this roster from being a special teams guy. When Dave Toub wants somebody, they stay on this roster. And I think Dorian O'Daniel's just one of those guys. And especially with the addition of Nick Bolton, to where I don't think necessarily Dorian's going to be in a position where he's going to get on the field at linebacker. If they look at him as a liability, from that perspective, he may just be a pure special teams guy. But I think if Dave Toub wants that, that'll be there. And I really think that's the only reason I put him over Cobb. Because you're 100% right. Cobb showed everything he needed to in that first game, barring that it is preseason, but he showed the potential necessary to be the guy. And I feel like Dave Tobe's going to overpower that and keep Dorian O'Daniel as the special teams ace.
Who you got on the corners?
Oh, we got 3-8, CB1 with Jarius Sneed, Travarius Ward, Rashad Fenton, Mike Hughes, Deandre Baker, Bo Peep Keys.
All right, so, yeah, I think that's a pretty solid list. I think Mike Hughes is a 3 right now. Fenton, I think, is going to have a good year as well, Fenton Island. A lot of our Arrowhead Live guys like to hate on him, but I think he's going to be good as well. Travarius Ward, like what I saw from him. Sneed, of course, making plays everywhere. I think he's going to be great in this league. DeAndre Baker looked good as well. Before the season, or before the offseason, we were looking at cornerback, like, what are we going to do? I think we're going to be okay. It's hard to tell from one preseason game, but I think we're going to be okay there. The depth is not as bad as what you would think it is. I'm completely on board with that list as well.
I yelled at Sneed and called him CB1 in training camp, and he just stared at me.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, sure did. Going to safety, though, and you know what? I'm looking at this roster, or I'm looking at our numbers here. Some of these guys are going to have to go because we're forgetting about the special teams guys.
Oh. That's true.
So, I could probably defensive line will probably cut, and then offensive line will cut as well. So keep LDT, let Prince go.
The practice squad.
I think you got to let Saunders go instead of Tim Ward. To be honest,
I don't know if they will, but it's possible.
I don't either. But for the safeties, you got Tyrann Mathieu, of course, Juan Thornhill, Dirty Dan Sorensen, and I'm going to go with Devin Key here. I know he did not look good at all in that preseason game. Rookie jitters, I want to say. I hope, anyway.
He has one bad play, one glaringly bad play. And then other than that, he made some good plays later in the game.
It's bad enough that you don't forget it, and that's not good.
And it was literally like the only highlight play from San Francisco's offense, so it makes it worse. I mean, it's a common mistake. He bit and tried to jump a route like he was in college, and he found out really fast this is the NFL.
He just stayed so flat on his coverage. Like, he wasn't bending or nothing. He was just super flat. And that's how that guy got behind him so quick.
He bit and stepped in and dropped down, and then that guy was over the top of him before he could even flip his hips. So it happens. It was a rookie mistake. I think he's very good. I don't know. I'm kind of perplexed about the Will Parks situation because I like Will Parks. I think he's a very solid DB, but he didn't get a lot of playing time in that first game. So I'm interested to see if that increases. If it does, I think it's him and Key battling for that fourth spot for sure.
For sure. And then obviously special teamers, Tommy Townsend, great punter, great punt in that preseason game. And then Harrison Butker as well. So that rounds it out. Remains to be seen. We'll see how correct we are. We'll look at that on our next episode. But
Keys might have to go too.
Just to see where we're.
We didn't open a spot for Winchester.
Right? Yeah, for sure. That's all we have for today, guys. It feels like it's quick, but honestly, it's right at our run time. So, Marcus, you got anything to add before we get out of here?
No, I mean, tune in Friday, 7:00 on ESPN. Chiefs are set to take on the Cardinals in Arizona. Like I said, another preseason game. Starters should get a little bit more run. We should see Patrick hopefully for more than 4 snaps, maybe a couple series. Just excited. Same thing. Hopefully some of these guys like Tim Ward and DeAndre Baker, Chris Jones, maybe they can build on what they did in the first week and just getting to see even more out of that offensive line is what I'm really excited about. So glad to be back consistently. We're going to get into a rhythm. Going to be coming to you a couple times a week, hopefully every week, barring everything going good. I know you're getting ready to pick up another job. I just have an interview tomorrow, so wish me luck for that, for a second job. So our time's going to be a little bit tight, but this is something we're passionate about. We want to get content out to you guys, just keep you informed about this Super Bowl roster and this Chiefs team, and just excited to keep going forward into another season and just connecting and growing more with Chiefs Kingdom and building this. Like I said in the beginning of the episode, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way when we do post episodes, you'll get those notifications directly to your device that you use to watch YouTube. So, yeah, for me, though, that's pretty much all I've got. Just glad to be back and looking forward to yet another preseason game and closer to week 1, you know what I mean?
For sure, guys. And as always, follow us on Twitter. Interact with us on Twitter at the KC Tailgaters on Twitter. Please go check that out. We're on Instagram as well. It's all right there at the KC Tailgaters. So, yeah, like Marcus said, we're going to stay consistent with this, keep it going regardless of our schedules and stuff like that. So, that being said, I'm Jordan Anderson. With me as always, my guy Marcus Baker. Thanks for tuning in to the KC Tailgaters show. We'll see you guys down the line.